Right, it's 7:30. We'll start the ball rolling. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to the Hilton Parish Council meeting on Monday, the 2nd of October 2017. Item 1 on the agenda is to receive any apologies for absence and declarations of interest. We have an apology for absence from Ian Bates. We were under the impression that Jew was coming, but hopefully he hasn't arrived yet. Any declarations of interest? No. Right, then we'll open up the floor to the public, as we normally do. At this stage, any comments from the public?
Yes, please.
Margaret.
I can't read this without my glasses, but it's about the lorries on the main road. What number is that? 5.2.
5.2.
Yeah. As you probably know, I've emailed Joe twice during the recent month about the lorries. The second time I did realise, there was a great number that particular night, but I've since discovered that there was a problem on the A14 that night. It wasn't closed because of the building, it was a problem, which is understandable, but it's still a law that they're not supposed to come through in the first place. But it is still happening, it's mostly from any day of the week except weekends. And I do know other people who are complaining about it, and it makes houses shake, pictures move, and it wakes people up.
We'll discuss that when you come to it.
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you very much. I'm not stopping, I've got lots of other things to do, but thank you very much. Anyway.
We will discuss it at
Thank
5.2.
you. Thank you.
And we welcome Doug.
Good evening.
Just in time.
Excellent.
We're just doing the open part of the meeting, so any comments from District or County Council that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, the main thing that's going on at the minute that I'm involved in is my panel will certainly be scrutinising the local plan when it comes back again, because it's still on target to be prepared for submission next year. The downside that you may have picked up in the press this week, and certainly if you haven't, and I hadn't as quickly as developers had, is the government has now changed the rules on how the numbers are actually calculated, and it looks like over the period of the local plan we've now got to find another 6,000 houses. I believe the executive decision, and it hasn't been referred to me yet, is we go ahead with the numbers we've got, and then we sit down afterwards and do an amendment to, rather than hold the plan up any longer. And that may lead us to those numbers, or at least deciding how we're going to get to them. So that's an important thing. The other thing that also cropped up, we had our first case where our 5-year housing supply, which is a target that the government sets us, a government inspector checked our numbers and said they didn't add up, and allowed a planning application because he didn't feel we had a 5-year land supply. We've double checked and checked the numbers, and the way we've always worked it out still show that we've got the right numbers, but actually with the move on now, with the what the bit I was just telling you about, that may well change again. So I think we've had to look very carefully at that and decided we've got to be even more stringent when we're collecting those. Part of the problem there is you're reliant on developers being honest with you about what they think they're going to develop over the next year, because that's where the actual numbers come from. So, but that could cause real potential problems, because if it was proven that we regularly had below the 5-year land supply, someone could, for example, turn up, pick on my village rather than yours in Hemingford, and say, you haven't got a 5-year land supply, there's a nice piece of land here we could put 100 houses on. I know it's not in the local plan, I know it's not allocated, but actually you need the housing. And the government inspectors would say, oh yes, we can see that from the fact the numbers don't add up. So it's hugely important to get that right. So that's the main thing that's happening on those. There's a car parking review going on at the moment, mostly led by the fact that one of the scrutiny panels had a presentation from the councillor who was responsible for car parking, which basically consisted of what he was going to put the charges up by. That panel's turned around and said, actually, can't we look at the whole thing in the whole, why we do car parking, how it works, what it's providing, i.e. if it's going to be paid for, how's it paid for, what's it do. So there's a whole review of car parking services undergoing at the moment. If you look online, and you may have had a copy emailed it to you today, the first part of that's being shared. So I think the idea of that is, rather than it be a top secret programme as it goes along, the information as it's collected is going to be put out there for people to see and contribute to. So that's an important task that we're doing. I can't remember here if the bin rounds when they were reconfigured actually affected the village or not. And most of the days, yeah, I don't think we've had any major problems. A couple of parishes elsewhere in the district have had some problems with, effectively the equipment not turning up and causing problems. So that's been a bit of a problem elsewhere, but I haven't seen that. The only other thing is the joint thing across all my parishes, which isn't really my problem in the sense because we don't do the transport in the district. There's obviously the buses and the problems there, but we decided locally, a few of the district councils to sort of take a lead and work with groups in their parishes, because obviously where we're sitting here between yourselves, Hemmingford Grey, Abbots, even Godmanchester, and some of the villages outside the immediate district, we've got a need to work together so that when the county council does its review, we're actually presenting on a united front on something we really want rather than individually, because it's fallen upon us at a late date. And I believe St Ives Town Council is starting a lead on that, and I'm just going to see how that develops, because I don't believe I have to lead on everything. If something's there that we can all buy into, I'd be quite happy to go along with that. So that's the things I'm involved with at the moment. So if the Chairman's happy for anyone to ask me anything, I will answer any questions if I possibly can, or on anything else as well.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Can I ask about the example of Hemmingford potentially having more housing thrust upon it, if I can put it that way?
Or anywhere else, yeah. That was just a bad example. That was just an example.
Example. And likewise anywhere else. Is there enough planning to safeguard against that, or is that something we should be actually?
No, I think it's important to two things. The new local plan needs to be robust, and the figures need to stack up.
Yeah.
The numbers need to provide what's needed within the requirements, and then the numbers being developed need to actually push forward. One of the things we all need to do, as me in my position here, and also on the Parish Council in Hemmingford, and yourselves, is we quite often get told, you know, oh, well, it's you know, the district council, the planners, you know, that need to be pushed. It's actually not. The planning permissions are being given. If you have a look how many planning permissions are out there, there's more than you need for the number of years. The developers aren't building out at a rate. So my advice to a lot of people on it, if we want to put real pressure on, is we've got our MPs out there, and they'll say, oh, all the tools are there to help us work with it, and I don't believe they are. And we've got to say to them, look, you've got to make it possible for us to say to someone, you've had your planning permission for 5 years now, you're not building it out, we'll take it away and give it to this guy over here instead, which I think might focus a few minds on that. But as I say, it's something we need to be aware of. But I think at the moment, because the numbers have been tested, I think we're okay. We're about 5.2 according to the new formula now, having worked on it. So I think we're okay. But it's always one to be keep your eye on.
Yeah, no.
On the same subject really, but the local plan, when do you think it will be finally rubber stamped?
Right. Once it's submitted, which will be next March, it then has legal weight. So, but it doesn't have full legal weight until it's been through the inspector and come out the other end, which at the moment they've got such a long backlog. It could be a year, it could be 2 years. So, but the important day is to get that one in for next March. But beyond that,
in terms of planning guidelines, though, are you referring now to it as emerging policy, and therefore?
Yeah. We've been considering on the planning committee, which isn't called that, it's called the control panel nowadays, but nonetheless it is the planning committee. We've been taking into account with increasing weight for about the past 18 months to 2 years now.
Thank you.
And we submitted in, we sent in the comments, put in the deadline, there's a copy here, and put a copy of that. And, so the Hilton viewpoint was, well, the Parish Council viewpoint was put across in line with the deadline for the last consultation. We have a 3.1 item which is about bus service, so we'll be going to talk about that as well. And that HDC facing cuts across the board like CCC.
Not quite to the same degree, but I think we had our big cuts probably 4 years ago now. You know, we cut all our, like we would say, well, we're not a transport authority, we used to have a transport budget, if you remember, going back that time. All those non-statutory things that we didn't have to do came out. So I think because we were quite harsh very early on, we haven't got to do it now. Not so we did it any better because we did it earlier, it just means the county now got to the point where they have to. Yeah. But no, I mean, at the moment we're quite confident that our budgets will stack up and continue to go forward.
Anybody else? We'll probably bring them in on 3.1 in a moment. Everybody else happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone happy? We'll go back to the agenda then. We'll close the open part and open the closed part. First item is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of September. You've all had those. I always say that. Every time. That proposal be accepted. Thank you, Graham. So Anne, Sarah and Willie. Vote on that. So all those, the others, are you all in favour? That'll be a yes. Thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions, just for information?
Mhm.
And this inmates pass a booklet.
Yes, unfortunately that has been destroyed by some visitors to my house. A little 4-year-old boy got hold of it and sadly ripped it up. It was a booklet from Hilton and Whitton. He drew all over it and then ripped it out. It's not important, is it, Peter? Well,
Can we get another copy?
I don't know.
Or can I request that we do another copy in place?
Please.
Please. Thank you. That's it, really.
Thank you very much. Right, now we go on to the agenda. 3.1 is to decide on working group. This is about the buses. Okay, so last month we had Ian telling us all about the way council was. No, it wasn't the council. Wasn't there. It was Whippet had slashed a number of bus services, and that the county council had spoken to people like Jews coaches. I don't know their relations or cousins, and some services being put on which were being put on for a year, 12 months. I believe that's right, and there is actually a bus service out of Hilton, I believe, in the morning for the
I think so.
students at the sixth form colleges. But that last month we thought that there wasn't. So asked you to go away and think about what you would like to do with regards to looking at it from a Hilton point of view, as there was not a great deal of coming forward at the time. So I was thinking that we should have a working group to explore the ideas and options. We could then talk to Doug's group at Hemmingford, or we could talk to St Martin's Parish, Town Council when they come forward. I'm sure Finn Stanton are also in the same boat as us. We sort of look around the other village and decide whether there is what action, if any, that Hilton wants to take. So,
I agree that looking at other locations makes a lot of sense. Did we need to identify somebody that will take that one?
So I haven't sent this out, but just to make you all aware that from what Doug said a little while ago, it only came into me today that St Ives Town Council are approaching villages to sort of put heads together, I think. As I say, that only came in today, so I haven't sent it out to everyone yet.
Can I suggest we actually ask the bus companies direct how it affects us?
as well, yeah.
Because at the moment we've had a sort of round robin, haven't we?
Yeah.
If we approach the bus companies, just look at it from a purely search point of view, and get it first hand.
As well, yeah. I think we should
Okay.
go both ways.
Yeah, it's not like you get asked.
We did discuss about doing a survey, didn't we, not only of the villages to see what the need was.
Or we could ask the county council.
Yes. So it was debated as to who was going to do that survey, wasn't it?
I think that's a good idea.
It would be a
We need to
proposal
know
that would go.
who wants to use this service and when it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a county council should be doing that. County councillors, that is.
Can
Or
I
county
help
council.
you on that? Anne Meredith on Hemmingford Grey Parish Council on behalf of Hemmingford Grey and Hilton, Hemmingford Grey and Abbots, has already done a survey exactly along that line. I'm sure she'd share it with you if you contact me, and I'll put you in contact with her to do that. And that would, I mean, the information might not be helpful, but the questions and whatever else, she worked really well on it, and it probably would assist you.
Thank you, Doug.
We left it at the last meeting.
We do.
but
Please go away, think about
it's
it.
an idea to settle the work group.
Yeah,
Rather
Yeah.
than
absolutely.
it becomes something for the council to
Yeah.
sort out tonight.
Mhm.
Are we still going to do that?
I think it's a good idea because we know from the parish plan discussions that people of different ages will be bemoaning the fact that you can't get to the park and ride, you're reliant on a car to even get a public transport anywhere else. So, and school periods, etc. cars. I think it should be helpful. Do something about it.
Yeah. Any volunteers?
I don't mind volunteering, but it'd be nice for somebody else to do it with me.
I'll work with you on that.
Thank you. Okay.
And I'll put my hand up for that as well.
I'll put my hand for it as well. It's quite important to make sure that we go in the right way. Okay, so we've got four. We'll arrange a meeting and then we'll look at the information that Joe's got. Joe, I've got to ask you
Yeah,
Get
forward that on to everyone.
and I'll
Speak
start with
to
that.
Yeah.
Certainly, we can have a look to see what action we need to take.
Do we have a contact for St Ives Town Council?
Yeah, they've been emailed me,
You've got
so
one.
yeah.
That came today, so we'll pass that around and then we can bring back discussions to the parish council meeting. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other comments? No? Good. Right, 3.2 is right. A14, any updates including telematics in the vehicles? It's spy and count.
I was hoping to be able to update you, but Jade's been on holiday and I'd hoped that she might be able to respond by today, but she hasn't, so unfortunately I haven't really got anything I can report on that at the moment.
Okay.
We'll keep chasing her.
We have it as a recurring agenda item. The bridge is open, obviously, as most people may know, on the way to Manchester. We'll wait for the other two bridges to be opened, and might affect a reduction of construction vehicles, because then we'll definitely have to go that way along the road. Right, moving on then. 4.1 is green open spaces updates. Yeah.
Okay.
Sent in that.
I did. Let's deal with that one first. We've got, as you know, we did the survey. We have some prices in from the tree surgeon who did the survey with us. And, as you know, in the past we've always had quoted by two surgeons. But in this particular instance, whilst the leaves are still on the trees, we would like to do 3 items from that list. I should say that on Saturday, Ian and I are meeting as second tree surgeon to cost out the rest of the list. Because it's the leaves are starting to fall, we would like to crack on and get this work done, and it is particularly suited to this particular tree surgeon.
Yes, tree survey. So that's a spend of £690, removing dead wood from walnuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walnuts, and a large oak at Brown's Pit to remove several large pieces of dead wood. And obviously, yes, like you say, having the leaves on would be easy to identify.
And these are particularly high traffic areas.
Yeah.
That's why we want to take a risk.
We have to make sure that the trees are kept in a safe state for our parishioners. So, as a one issue, would you like to propose that?
I'll propose that.
I'll second it. All those in favour will that spend? Thank you, that's everybody.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing is, you may remember, with the hedges down the lane in the wilderness, we had agreed previously that they were going to be cut by Latterbury Services. They were going to use a flail, and the reason for doing this is so they could get their farm vehicles down there without crossing over on the grass.
Yes.
They missed the nesting season, so nothing happened all year. We've had a conversation with John Carter and to see if there's another way we can go about it. And I met with John and Duncan McMichael on Saturday, and they're proposing that they do it instead of laboratory services. And we would prefer this, wouldn't we? Because of the using a flare is a bit
Much better idea.
obviously it's a bit more time consuming. John Carter can do the work, or his part of the work, out of directed hours. Duncan McMichael, he's saying it's 2.5 days between the two of them, so that's 20 hours. His rate is £400, so it actually represents a small saving for the council doing it this way as well. So as the funds have already been allocated to this, I would like to propose we do it a different way.
Any comments?
Just a reminder on the timing of this, would this be short?
This will be short, very short, so that the debris can be put on the...
So, only one question from me is about safety of doing it, because obviously a flail is on an up,
Yeah.
reach the heights that most arms can't. They've got to be all right getting that high.
I'm lending them a very stable ladder. It's a 3-point tripod ladder, 16 feet high, so they'll be able to work safely.
Yeah, good, because that's...
And it's all, a lot of it, of course, is being done with pole saw.
Yeah.
It's going up 17 feet, so it's,
Yeah.
the old 16-foot ladder is not.
I think it's a much better idea.
It's much nicer
Much
than a
fairer, just nice.
Do we have to discuss that with the users, the agricultural farmers?
I think we have to inform them that we know when they need
Yeah.
to do it. So I'd like to do that.
All right. I've got a second to wait.
I'll propose that.
So that's a proposal to change the spend from 500 to 400, and the contractors, if you like, to be contracted hours and Kim's propose that? Would he second
Well,
that?
second, yeah.
All those in favour? Thank you. That was a hand, was it, Sharon?
Yeah.
Yes. It just sort of went down whilst everybody was up, so to speak.
Okay, so I mentioned that we're meeting another tree surgeon on Saturday. The maize, I think I might have mentioned it last week, but I mentioned it again, last month rather, but I mentioned it again. It's going to be recut, so John's going to go out with his templates and he's going to recut it. That will pretty much use up all those directed hours for this year.
Yeah.
So that won't be really until we get into past April.
Yeah.
But I think it's well worth doing.
Kerry, it would be worth taking the £100 saving that you've got from Bartley, using his hours and taking additional hours that we have time available if we need it.
Right, we could do that. Yeah. But at the moment, just to keep it simple and without sort of having to agree on additional spends, it's easier to take it all out of the director's hours. If we subsequently need it between now and April, then it would be useful to have a bit of something in the hand.
Yeah. And any heritage at all?
I'll put my hand up and say it's down to me to do that, so I haven't got around to it.
I just wondered whether, because that would be interesting to see if they have any desire to be re-involved with
Right.
names.
What we're doing is to English heritage specification.
Yeah.
That work will be done gradually over the winter. The maze gets closed. We normally rope it off this time of year anyway. That will happen either this weekend coming or the week following. Because we're in for a dry week, we might put it off a week. And I will be sending out some dates soon for tree planting Saturday. Might be done over 2 Saturdays, but we're getting to that point now where that's on cards.
Yeah.
I've got 3 more little cool oaks. Would you
Oh,
like them?
yes please. Thank you.
Remind me.
Does that include replacing the new tree that's broken?
That's something John Carter and I will do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could be done at the same time.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Have you done?
You covered it nicely, thank you.
And we had feedback from you last month about cordially. Thank you for doing that. I think we had feedback from you last month. Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's,
Well, I thought,
yeah, are you discussing the bench or not?
well, I thought that was the idea to
Discuss the condition of the
the
ground.
ground and whether that's us.
We can do it now,
With it.
but to be honest, I'm not fully up to speed with the bench.
But the bench is, the Women's Institute bench is ready to be rehomed,
Yeah.
but apparently the ground there isn't in the right condition. I don't know if that's something that we want to.
And all the stones are broken, so it's a question of whether we
Do you want some more
move some.
paving slabs?
No, thank you. It's a question of what we do with it, whether we try and grass it out or move the bench along a bit, but there's no broken paving zones, it doesn't look good. And it's also it's a precedence for what we do with the other, the Eastwick bench, which was Spears bench or Spire's bench.
The trouble is, unless you have some sort of proper surface, if you just have grass, it's always going to get worn away anyway, isn't it?
Because the benches,
But the
really
cricket ground.
they don't seem to suffer too much. But we can always put in later, you see, I don't know. But the stones, certainly by the maze, need to be attended to.
Is it
Because they're sunk and broken.
is
yeah.
used more regularly because people watch their children play
No,
there?
because the stone's actually under the bench.
Um,
You have the bench and then the stones run underneath it, they weren't even under it.
there is sort of a slabbed area in front, isn't it? You don't put your feet on grass.
I think that was the case for the Eastwick bench, bricks were done by bench, it was underneath.
Can we have a look at that over the month, next month?
Yeah, it's this is our group that's
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Green, have a look at that.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's anything that needs to be done so that we can then get the bench back.
Yeah. Okay, I think you need to question whether they can move it a bit to the right, a bit to the left.
Right.
Because it'd be very hard to let.
Maybe you're up to speed on all of this.
I can show you where it is.
Well, there's another bench that's been
Yes.
repaired, isn't there?
There's two benches and they need to go back, so
Right.
we're going to sort of have a
groundwork
The
inspection.
one outside the
Whether
ground
there's
is
any-
isn't about
And
the
if they were to be recited,
just to outline please.
on there. So that's what we need to do over the next month. Okay, so,
And while we're talking about benches, can I just say the picnic bench is broken as well?
So-
And
you last
also the cricket
Thank you,
bench.
Rossies.
Graham's done some repair.
Oh, have you repaired it?
Oh. Thank you.
Did you see the cricket pavilion bench? That's coming adrift as well.
Do we need a bench review?
The seats, benches and seats, aren't there?
A bench, yeah, the bench, past the cricket pavilion.
There's the picnic bench.
Last one, isn't
There's a picnic bench.
Yeah, the picnic bench
That's
was
okay, yeah, twisted, that's fine, yeah, okay.
twisted.
Yeah.
Oh, right, and then the bench past the cricket pavilion.
Right.
That the slats are all coming out of the right, as you're looking at it, the left-hand
I
side.
hadn't noticed that. Oh, that's a good change bench if you could put one in a recycle process.
Okay, we'll investigate that.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
So-
right.
So, sorry, just so I know where we are with the WI one, and then we can bring that back to the next.
If you could say, we're going to look at the ground, see if there's any repairs needed to the ground, and whether the WA5 can be rehoused, it's not different if it is, what needs to be done about that. Okay? Thank you. Anything more, Kieran, or Ian, on free open spaces?
No, it's,
Thank you. Okay, and everybody okay with that? 4.2 is Appendix A. We held this over from last month because we had talked about, because Alan's not here, so that's why we held it. We didn't take anything on that. Sorry, let's take it. I keep thinking I'm going to knock it over whenever I move. So we have parish plan and volunteer group to amalgamate. This was something that came up a few months ago, and we asked, the question was, had we agreed as the Parish Council for those two groups to be amalgamated? I believe, was that?
Well, I think Anne suggested we amalgamate them, and I do have recollection of it, but trying to find it in the minutes was a different matter, but obviously it's up for discussion.
Well, I'm happy to give my perspective on it.
Please do.
Going back in time, and I can't remember when, Justo and I primarily adopted the idea of why we have a volunteer group, and that's not ignoring the fact that there's lots and lots of people who do volunteer already in the village to lots of things, but whether we could galvanise a bit more volunteering, and by the same token perhaps encourage younger people to get involved, and so they could learn and so on, give to the community, that kind of stuff. But on the one hand, you could say, well, do we need another volunteer group? Lots of the committees and so on use volunteers already. Or and I perhaps ought to say, having done the work we've done on the parish plan, I've got views on that. And I do have, by the way, what was requested, which is an update on the previous style, whatever the word is. And I'm happy to send that round. But on the basis that in there, it's quite clear that historically and more recently, there are many things that rather than either a parish council doing or things not getting done, if we could galvanise some energy and engage specific interested parties within the parish, then maybe we could address them. So the idea of amalgamating the parish plan group with the volunteer group is I would suggest, in the context of picking off some of these things, so that enthusiasts just get on and do it. That does raise the question as to whether the parish council wants to influence that, understandably, or not. But that's where I am with it, and that's what I'd encourage us to say.
Because I think it was agreed when the volunteer group was set up, was that any work would be directed by the parish council.
Yes.
Because we've got to make sure that anything is covered by insurance and this, rather than, as you say, people merely going off and doing stuff. There needs to be some sort of guidance. So the question is, doesn't really need to happen then, does it? Yes?
Say again?
Doesn't really need to happen, does it? The amalgamation, because the work is going to be directed anyway. Any work for a volunteer group will be directed by the full council, because we have to make sure that it is agreed and, that there is insurance and they're not doing something to put them at risk as well as members of the public. That would be my view.
So who manages the volunteer group today?
Has the volunteer group been called upon? Because works that have been done where if there's particular things that need to be done with particular people who've got the skills are asked to help to do it, aren't they, I think?
Well, I'm just wondering, is it worth formalising that in some way? And by doing this, that may do so. So it still go through the parish council for agreement, but to have a central point where it can be coordinated, you can kind of keep that formal list of people, make them as accessible, manage it from a time point of view, rather than leaving it sitting out there as something that's about, and like a lot of these things, they tend not to be utilised unless they're controlled or owned.
Because we've called on people to help. I have in the past, and we do a good number. Occasionally the playground.
It's done on a very informal basis. It's just sort of an email out to people who might be interested.
Well, that was my sense of, because some people were quite vocal about some of the issues that still exist in the parish, then let's, in a sense, call the bluff and say, okay, this is something we could do with the parish council's blessing. So let's get to them and do it.
As long as this council is the council that dictates what the work is to be done. Because
if I put it a different way, then I suppose you could just, from my point of view, in terms of the interest shown via the discussion on the parish plan, it may be the question is, and it may not be necessary, can we proceed with some of the issues on the parish plan by using volunteers in the community overseen or exceeded by the Parish Council. That's a different thing.
Well, we haven't had that feedback yet, have we? I don't think. So we need to have that to decide that, to have a considered opinion on that, which you're going to send out for next month's meeting.
I can give you copies now for reading.
It's not on the agenda. So it will have to come for next month's meeting, I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
So let's bump that to next month's meeting then.
Is it worth sharing those
discuss it.
now so that people have got a copy ready?
Let's take it home with them, yeah.
No, that's
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we can't enter into discussion on the agenda. And I'm not going to sit here and read it. Well, I'll try and hold it. So we're going to bump this until next time. Okay?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
4.3 is website. It's almost there. My apologies, Kieran. You asked me for some information I haven't provided to you, and I will provide it to you.
I've worked around you.
Fair enough.
No, I still need a few bits and pieces.
And it's autumn, isn't it? And we said autumn.
The website's ready.
Good.
It's ready where I would like input from or feedback from the councils.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll make the new website address known to you all.
Open it up for a brief period of time.
Until for a week, that's all
Yeah.
right. And then, as long as there's nothing too dramatic, should be able to make any smaller updates or additions next week. After that, it goes public. Now, I don't know how you want to do that, whether you want to put something in the spectrum.
Yeah. Should we then perhaps at the meeting on the 6th of November? Yeah, we say it's now open.
Yeah.
Okay, so we give it a month to test and check that people are happy with it, and then launch it
Okay.
to the GP, general public, on
Okay.
the, not to the doctor. Yeah?
And put it in spectrum, you said?
Yeah. Then it will be launched after the meeting of the 6th of November.
Okay.
All right, happy with that?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah. Fireworks. Discussion and decision and admission prices. You asked the question, Graham, and of course you get to this point where you think, what did we charge last year?
It's still 250. That's what all those who got the gate.
Yes, I know.
Who's the gate?
It was, ours.
Is it
It
250?
was 250, but it was a family price, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was reduced.
Did my maths in something
Oh,
wrong?
it
250 and a pound, was it?
has been very
A
Yeah.
pound per
Yeah.
child, isn't it? But
Yeah.
under fives are free.
I would say.
But then a family price was it?
£8 or something? Because I know that it was something, and you and I were going,
That's not much.
More than 3
of a
kids.
bargain.
Yeah, sorry.
no, but it was something odd.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to consider putting them up.
No.
Because
But some
of the
good
cutting in family
Yes.
money. So
that works quite
we'll
well.
charge what we charged last year.
Whatever it was.
And
We would know spectrum,
Yeah.
fine.
I was going to say spectrum return.
the
I
poster
think
from
it was
last year.
250 a pound. I wasn't aware of the family ticket.
It was definitely a pound a child.
Yes.
Well, we'll have it in the minutes from last year.
Yes, but it doesn't make. Yeah, okay.
So we'll charge what we charged last year, okay?
Yeah, we'll get that in spectrum
Yes.
with this right up.
Time same as usual? Oh, sorry, usual, please.
Well, the questions here, you know, obviously we can do what we like, but I mean, it seems to work quite well. So that we opening at 6.
This week.
Well, that was question number 5. I think you're jumping the gun, mate. I didn't like the order. I just put them in random thoughts. Well, yeah, this week. I mean, are this week able to support us?
Yes, they are. They've got 11 volunteers
And
total.
are they okay to do?
Egypt,
fireworks?
yes,
Who's
they are.
leading?
Great.
Sorry?
Who's leading it?
Hannah
lady across the road.
Hinston. She lives in the Isle Barn.
Okay.
Okay.
So she's chairman, but brand new to it. So Craig is happy to carry on with barbecue as normal.
Brilliant. Thanks. So in that case, if we have got some caterers, as in this week,
Yeah.
then I suggest time the same as last year.
Yep.
6 o'clock, and then set fire at 7 o'clock, or sort of 5 to 7 o'clock. Bonfire open times, now that's always a interesting one. Last year, those of us that manned the bonfire on Friday, we were exceedingly bored. And I think we all agreed that let's put it into a good date Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pesson.
So if that's okay with everyone, don't you?
Yeah.
Natalie? So we'll have the hours on Saturday, and then everybody can meet and have coffee. on
I'm happy
Saturday
to put
morning.
myself forward for
Well,
that.
there'll be a list come round by email.
You will be honest.
So you don't have to
Put me on it.
Just in case you're away, you know, so
What
well.
time is that from? Saturday, what time is that from? Saturday?
8 o'clock, I think we have done previously. But well, the thing is, if we're only open for less hours, you need to give
I did my
parishioners.
New Year's.
Excellent,
Yeah,
fine.
There's one down the road.
Okay.
good.
You know which one I'll do.
Yeah. Can we close at 1?
Yes.
I'll do that one.
12 to 1. 12 to 1.
Sorry,
I'll do the 11th.
What's the date
Okay.
again?
Oh, blimey.
Saturday the 4th of
Oh,
November.
thank you. That's awesome.
I haven't been used to this. This was enthusiasm.
sorry,
Sarah,
what time?
you're doing 11, yeah?
I'll do 11.
Peter's doing the 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do the early one.
You're doing that, I've got you down that direct, so that's fine. So we've got a big chunk. Right, thank you.
What time do you want us there on the Saturday? Is it 5
Uh,
o'clock?
Well, the gates don't open till 6, but as long as someone's there by about 1:45 in case someone wants to jump in the gate early. But the Friends doesn't really start till about 6:30. But I mean, if we can sort of stagger it from then.
Okay.
But I'll send an email around so you can see who's
5:45.
busy and not busy. So yeah, okay. So that's good, thank you very much.
I don't think your last one's going to be applicable this year,
Yeah.
because I think it's a non-pollard union. I think last year was pollard union, was it?
Don't remember, but they look quite green and fluffy.
There's a policy. We were going down at the low level. They weren't followed last year.
Right, okay, then, it's not applicable then, that's good. Good. Because
They
it
weren't,
does
I
cause a
remember
bit of
they
issue,
done
doesn't it?
last
So that's fine.
Yeah, it's last year.
I
think basically the trees were cut at the end of last week.
Fine,
The
okay,
bottoms were,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's fine, that's not the question, it's going to need to be answered. Brilliant, thank you. Any other questions? No, good.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, no other questions, then we're all out on fireworks. Good. Thank you
Oh,
very
do you want
much.
to send an official note to this week to thank them?
What, before they're done?
Make them,
I need to find
it's
out.
without them, we are stupid, so it'd be nice to
Yeah, yes,
thank them very much, and it would be a good way of starting communication with the new chair.
Lynn Radbone's secretary.
We, yeah,
Want to contact.
we'll contact them and talk to them.
Right.
Just to, so they know timings as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Right.
And when the gate will be open, and they'll be closed. And that sort of thing. Lovely. Right, happy? Item 5.1. So we've had a request from the HCV group regarding the installation of 3 nitrogen dioxide traffic pollution monitors in Hilton as part of bits and pieces they've done with CCC, and they want to repeat the air quality monitoring that was undertaken in 2012. So 3 months would cost £292.50. Any comments?
Certainly it's a good idea to monitor air quality. We know from all the E14 stuff that the air quality region is going up. Not
NOx won't change much of those.
Going down then.
down and down.
12,
Yes,
sorry,
yes,
I don't think NOx
Three.
will change much of those.
Three.
Other things, NOx, I'd be surprised.
I suppose well, when are they proposing to do it though?
Just at 12 months, isn't it? So
Just
as
12
soon as they get.
Yeah.
But is this starting once the road's built or now?
Yeah, that's, okay, yeah, different question.
Because that would, to your point, that would make a difference, wouldn't it? Let's see.
Doesn't say.
So we find out when.
I think it is
I think it's
now.
now, because they're
They're
saying
doing
that
it
the
across other
2
places.
county councils were talking about putting it off until completion.
Mhm.
Therefore, by inference, it would indicate it's to be done now.
Right.
There's some monitor on the bridge over the A14 as you're going to Penstanton. That, there's some kind
I
of
think that's,
pollution thing set up there, or noise thing in a box. Very big
yeah, I saw that.
tool thing. I don't know whether that's what they were talking about setting up
Yeah.
along Gravely Way somewhere.
And that's what, yeah, HE does, isn't it?
That's right. This is in, so this is
This
within
is
the
house.
appendix.
So this
of
is
Yeah.
different.
But I mean, it's quite a reasonable amount, as long as it's sort of done sort of in accordance with regs and rules.
It depends what you get from it.
But it's
Because it's just
definitely,
information that's nice to have, and
yeah.
you can't think what's spending money, but it's, if there's going to be action on the back of it, and then if it's going to change anyway when the road's completed, you can kind of ask what's the value of doing it now when we know it's about to change.
I think what will happen, Rob, is there'll be a request to repeat it after road
So what we just wait and do then?
So it's a before and after.
Need a reference.
and the
Is
last
it not
one,
already?
2012.
2011.
Right, it says, yeah, it says here, it was, yeah.
Yeah, I'll hand up.
Andy,
Yeah, as a member of the HTB group, I can probably add a bit into that. Yeah, it's an ongoing process across quite a number of villages across this area in the triangle covering the A14 and villages north of the A14. I think the letter did say that we did have monitoring here about 3 years ago,
2012.
and the idea of this is to, that was sort of like a benchmark then, see whether we had increased pollution since then. That could be perhaps because of extra traffic due to the A14 construction, and continue the monitoring as long as is felt necessary across those. And that will provide evidence, empirical evidence, back to the council rather than anecdotal that pollution levels are higher. And that was really the reason for it. And I want to try and have a consistent approach for collecting data, having it analysed on a monthly basis to feedback.
Well, I must say, I favour the idea, almost regardless of the 14 side, given the reports that you do read about deaths from poor air quality, and it gives you more of an argument if you do want to push back at whichever, whoever, if it's going on.
I haven't got a problem with it.
Spend or not spend?
To spend, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard pushed if you didn't. I mean, it's not an awful lot of money, is it? And if we're doing it every 4 years, 5 years, it's 1% of our spend. But it has to be done in a manner where the answers are legal and binding.
It's quite a specific check, isn't it? Is there a broader? There's a lot more in air quality than just marking dioxide.
I don't know, I suspect it's a sort of a cheap thing as it goes through. It's nothing powered to it. Where something else you have to understand exactly where they are, because you can extract from all sorts of things. This is probably a very simple test. At £9 a month or whatever.
Yeah, they're diffusion tubes with a chemical in them, and it is possible to monitor particulates, nitrogen dioxide and sulfur dioxide as well, but they need the price to start going up. At the moment, the nitrogen dioxide has been seen to be one of the main.
Mainly diesel fuels, isn't it? That's pretty much.
It's the main harmful one. I think it's been decided, although particulates aren't particularly good on the lungs. But nitrogen dioxide is one that is being looked at very carefully by Europe at the moment. And the UK has failed miserably and is being sued by Europe for failing all the all of the air quality tests. So we just need the evidence.
Could we ask about what the extra cost would be to have other things tested?
I think the HCB group is going along that route.
They were looking at all of them, Peter. We've been looking at nitrogen dioxide and the others as well, but there's a limited budget and everything else. We want to make sure we hit the right one early and quickly, and then we're looking at electronic monitoring going forward in a longer term with CCC and with the HDC environmental group in Huntingdon.
Okay. Excellent.
Do we have to do 2 locations?
Three.
It's three.
Three locations.
Is that anything like that?
So, all the same price for 3 locations.
The 292.50 is for 3 locations.
So what's one location?
At the east and west of the entrance to the village and in the centre of the high street.
So I don't know the rationale, the argument for saying you need 3, or whether there has to be a distance between.
I think it'd be interesting if you did it. It'd be interesting to see if there is a difference.
Yeah. From one end of the town.
We're going to present us with the results.
Don't say we're paying for it.
Ask Andy.
Well, Sarah, you're on the HDB group, aren't you? I think you were volunteer for that. There's a meeting tomorrow evening, in fact, in Sutton.
I haven't been informed.
Oh, haven't you? Oh, I'll tell Owen. Okay. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very collaborative group, HDB group, and I know Sarah was interested in participating in that on the RSC. So we'll get all the data and you can input to it.
Ask for.
That's good.
All right. So I propose that we support this initiative and £292.50, which will be over 2 financial years. Good, indeed.
I'll second that.
To support, so Joe's got it for the, ask HCV Group to install 3 nitrogen dioxide monitoring tubes in accordance with their letter of, I know it came in just on the date of our last meeting, so if you put the date on the letter, okay, on the basis that we'd love to have the results shared with us. So I propose that. Who said second? Anne said second. All those in favour? No? That's everybody, thank you very much. Good day. 5.2, just consider ways to tackle the issue of HGV. So we had, as Margaret mentioned, and I think you've had other people complain about the number of HGVs at prohibited hours, and Margaret emailed on a couple of occasions as she mentioned about and acknowledged that on one occasion there was some trouble on A14, so that sadly will, I'm sure, but maybe a letter to our local constabulary asking them whether they would kindly come and monitor the number of vehicles that are coming through the village, because it's, we can't enforce anything, can we? Yeah, the rules.
I think that's the only thing we can do, isn't it?
Yeah, the Hilton Parish is a trading centre. I think it's trading centre to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Given that last month you talked about the end of the gravel way and perhaps approaching the council to see what was viable, doable to improve that junction, I just wondered if one could combine these things to say what's viable to make that junction safer, and at the same time potentially slow down traffic and make it less attractive for HCVs to.
But this is specifically about HGVs outside the hours that are permitted by the restrictions come through the village. So I think we should, those discussions are ongoing, and that can always be form part of it, but this is, I think we should approach now and ask the police to come and respond to complaints. And if they then say trading service standards, we'll go to trading standards. But I think we should, because we can't enforce anything. We can go out and monitor, but we can't enforce. So that's my suggestion.
Could I maybe suggest, because poor Margaret, I feel sorry on the main road going through with the lorries. We also have a phenomenal amount of traffic going through the village through the green. I did have a conversation with one of the chief workers who basically said that Jade was there to pay lip service to us, and he said he obviously would not confirm that. Could we perhaps have Jade to one of our meetings and invite the Parishioners to come through? There must be about 20 going through, it's not 25 each day.
You could invite them to stop at the pub and steer everyone out.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
I have no thoughts on it.
I have emailed Jade recently about that incident, and I'm waiting for her to come back to me because she's been on holiday, so I haven't given her an opportunity to come back on that yet.
Yeah, I don't know, have I got thoughts on it? I'd rather feel that bringing highways to a public meeting, as we saw at the village meeting that we had, I think we should engage in constructive dialogue with them and ask them what they're going to do, what they're doing about it. Personally, I think that would be an approach, and if we don't see, I do think we're seeing improvement as the bridges are all built, because then that will allow more traffic to go that way, because they'll be concentrating then on constructing the road. It's a personal opinion. We do know there is a major construction site up there, and we will get traffic through the village. They can say what they want, but you will get people who will say they don't know that. And it is for a short number of years that it's going to happen. It's a blight, yes, but it is
So in other words, we should just
I don't think
basically...
we should continue to do what we should do, what we're doing.
Okay.
Is this lorries? Because I haven't worked during the day. But I see a lot of vans,
Right.
but do we see lorries?
There's still a lot
Quite
of...
no,
Okay, so they would come during the day, so isn't it?
I wonder, Peter, whether there's would be an
Been asking
opportunity
if they
to reconvene the A14 group,
Yeah.
have a chat with ours and things, 'cause there's maybe a couple of issues that come to mind to discuss.
There's lots of things on there.
Fine.
Rather than a public meeting.
Yeah, we haven't had one of those for a while. Let's do that.
Yeah. Can't remember who's the convener of things.
Peter. Oh, you were.
Is it me?
Yeah. No, I'm perfectly happy with that. And I know that's not going to be the same view that everybody has with regards to it, but I do feel we're in a position where it is happening, and we have a route. If people are saying, I'm not going to get involved in tittle-tattle between contractors and highways, so then saying that she's only paying, we will continue to complain and make our points known.
Yeah.
Because there ain't much else we can
There
do
is-
about
there
it.
is-
I certainly think they were a good representation at our meeting. They seemed very honest and very, very on it, and they weren't going to tolerate any.
They were completely straight, weren't they?
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
were saying they would take their little display from in the window if they were found to be taking a shortcut through the village. So
Sharon, there's a sorry
And it's-
gentleman I spoke to was absolutely honest with me. He's one of the chief boss. I've got a picture of his photo.
I have addressed this with Jane.
And he really did. He sat there and he just said, look,
So
Jane's
is he
paid to give you
Chief
this.
Bod of Highways?
Yes.
Agents? And do we have his name?
Yes,
Yes,
I've sent
I've
all that
asked him to
information to Jane
Well,
now.
we will contact Mike Evans and discuss that with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Mike's a bigger bod.
That's absolutely fine.
We've got a long way to go, so we keep some pressure up.
It's just going to get worse and worse.
Right, happy with that?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen? Good?
Can I just interject on that?
Yeah,
So I've
so,
had the same problems in Hemingford Abbots and Hemingford Graham. They've gone to Mike Evans and said,
Yeah.
look, your works are creating the problems. The answer's come back that the trucks, etc., are invited to leave the A14 at Godmanchester, and there's a number who just ignore it. When they get to this end, they go not just where their sat-nav tells them, but wherever they feel like. So I think the suggestion's been that, well, actually, a lot of us would prefer if you just shut the road at Godmanchester, and locally we have a bit of a problem getting home on nights. That's what we said from over there. So it is the same problem.
it is the same.
They're getting to Fed Standard and going that way.
Yeah.
Or, if the queue's on the A14, they're spilling off even at Hemingford Abbots and trying
So
to
they
work
want to
through.
get on with their job. So we must continue to put pressure on them, and let's talk to Mike. We've spoken to Jane, we'll talk to Mike and see what he does.
So is that the A14 working party
Yeah.
that's going to do that?
So
And we'll
I'll
report
coordinate
back.
with you.
Yeah,
Convening
yeah,
by
because
March.
Jade only got back from holiday today, so she hasn't,
Give her a chance.
the email I sent was while she was away, so see what she comes back with and see then.
I'll send a few more.
Yeah, please keep,
After that
I know it gets
conversation I had with that
difficult.
chap whose name I can't remember.
It
I
does
thought,
get difficult, and it's really difficult because I've spotted them and then they've gone to
well, the only way of
Friday
doing it
night
is you
and
block
then-
them. You get out
But I
of the car.
can't do
and
that when I'm
No,
walking
not when
the
you're
dog.
walking, you can't.
But yeah.
Think about your personal safety as well.
It's only a road.
Yeah. Okay. Finance, section 6. Got something here. Right, section 6.1 is authorised the payment of JSC services, £660, cricket pitch mowing, £90, annual audit from the external auditors of £240, which I know includes £40 of VAT, so we'll get that back. The donation to the Legion for the £40, and the clerk's salary of £539.70. I have got the right one. Good check. I propose that we pay those bills.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favour? Good. 6.1. 6.2. The Finance and General Purposes Committee met recently. Met recently and are proposing to the Parish Council, this is for you to be able to go away and consider, because we will not vote on it tonight. This is will be, we have to submit the application for a precept after the December
It's
meeting.
December, yeah, I can't remember the exact date.
And the Parish Council or the Finance and General Purposes Committee are proposing that the precept be increased by a figure of 1.9% for the coming year, which James kindly calculated out is £523.83 extra, which is equates to just over £1 a house in Hilton. It doesn't quite work like that because of the council tax bandings. If you have any queries or want to discuss now, do so. If you want to think about it and bring those discussion points back to the next meeting, once you've got a month to do so, please do. Because like I say, we will not be voting on it until December necessarily, unless everybody can agree. But we'd like to put that out, let people know, have it so that people are aware, and then we make a decision afterwards.
Question. In terms of what we are anticipating doing in the next financial year, or would like to do, how does that match what we're asking for here? You know, I suppose I'm saying, is there anything we would like to do or are planning to do that would impact what the precept is?
Well, we know from how the budget's going to run out for the rest of this year that most of the money from the previous years is going to be allocated to
trees.
So there is no, there's no
There's no slack.
There is no slack.
We expect
We
costs to increase in
Yeah.
line with inflation,
Yeah.
and therefore this doesn't quite keep pace with those.
Well, why not? Why do we not push it a little bit more?
In terms of council tax rises and that sort of thing, should Cambridgeshire County Council, and I'm not sure about HDC, if you want to put an increase more than 1.9%, you have to go to referendum. That's same for
Certainly, HDC certainly can only go to a certain figure. I don't think the
County
Department of
Council
Local Government has announced what the figure is. They announce each year, but it
Yeah.
is normally around 2% or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would have to go to referendum
Right.
to get an increase bigger than that. Okay? So I think it would be fair to play the same rules.
Yeah,
The same rules. I think if we ever identified, for instance, that there was a major project that needed to be done, and you can go out to the parish and say, right, there's a £10,000 project we need to do. If everybody's in agreement, or the majority of people want it done, this could be added to the precept for 3 years, 4 years, and then the precept could be reduced afterwards. We don't have a project of that significant expenditure that has gone through the Parish Council in time to be discussed for this year's precept.
Okay.
If we have a project out there that would involve that sort of spend. So at this stage, we've had a good benefit from the directed hours contract. I think that's worked exceptionally well. Has allowed more work to be done within the village for the maintenance of the green, which of course is, if you like, we get a precept, we have Joe's cost, we have the cost of the maintenance of the green, we have insurance, we have lighting, and there isn't that much. When you start looking at ponds and ditches, there isn't that much more available. So if we were, that's when you start getting problems about buses. Yeah, to run a bus service is a substantial amount of money, and you can't try and slip that down from up there, up the back door, through the Parish Council, I don't think. So that is something that the bus group needs to talk about. Because what will be quoted for the daily cost to run the bus service? £300 a day. And you're not going to put that on the Parish Council. So that's where we are. I think that, so then that's our proposal, the Finance and General Purposes Group proposal for the precept for the coming year. Any other comments at this stage?
I personally don't think people have noticed.
I don't think that's the right answer.
I know.
Because people may notice, and you have to be.
Yes.
So please consider over the month. We'll discuss it. It'll be on the agenda for next month as well. And like I say, the application has to be in by the 10th of December, something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Any other comment? Stone? No. Okay. 6.3 is audit 2016-17 comments from external auditor. We had 2 comments from the external auditor this year. One was regarding the explanation of variance on other income, which I've got. Can't quite see where we've got what the variance issue is, because the other income is what you've got by way of other income. We gave an explanation as to why there was a variance of, because it went up from 8,000 to 10,000. So we gave them an explanation. They wanted some more. I didn't get back to them in time to give them the proper answer, but the figures that are on here are the figures that we have in the bank, the figures that came in, they're the figures that went out. Those were audited by our internal auditor. And they also commented about a date that was that it was notified on. These accounts were authorised at the Parish Council meeting on the 5th of June, and they thought they should go up on the 4th or something, wasn't it?
I'm not
You're going to
entirely
check
clear.
with that.
Yeah.
There was something about a date, but it didn't seem to us that we could have done it any earlier, given you had to go through a Parish Council meeting to have the accounts signed before you could put them out to say they were authorised. But we'll check. There's no implication in terms of financial penalty. So we'll check with our internal auditor again next year, of course, and make sure that we've got, hopefully, the right answers for them.
That's what you pay them for.
Indeed.
Sounds good for them.
Yes. But it is public money.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And there are, sadly, you hear stories of people running off with the public purse and that. So the information is all there. It is what's gone through the account. It is what's been paid out. So there is nothing about any money going missing or anything. It's there. So, was anything else you wanted to add? No. Fine. Okay. Any questions? No. All right then, councillors' items. Information only, no discussion, no decisions. Graham would like to kick this off or not kick it off.
I won't kick it off.
Thank you. Anne?
Yeah, cycle paths. I have got information about what we should be doing next to increase our chances of getting help from the council and Harris and Hilton for cycle paths. So I could send it one now, or I can do it separately, whichever you prefer.
It's a paper version. Yeah, would you be able to have you got
Of
anything
course
that you
I
can
am.
email me and I can put it on the
I
agenda
can
for
email
next
you
month
the-
as well?
The paper version this evening.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants it now.
Pass it around.
Yeah.
And you'll see I've set it out as a proposal. How many have I got?
Where have you got to? Sorry.
You can have that and I'll have the copy.
Rob's got a copy of it. Lovely, thank you very much. Anne, anything else?
Not from me, thank you.
Willie?
Not from me.
Rob?
Yours, I've forgotten it.
You have this one here as well.
Should we come back to you?
Come back if I remember.
John?
Not today, thank you.
Kieran? Sharon? I've got one. There is a Parish Council conference run by Huntingdon District Council. It is on Monday, sadly it is on Monday the 9th of October during the day. It starts at 9:30 and finishes at 1:30. Should anybody wish to go, please let Joe know.
Where is it? think she's at the school.
Burgess Hall in St Ives. I did go last year, but again, sadly, it's during the working day. And I'm already committed on Monday the 9th of October to something else. And on that note,
You find the drop now?
No.
last one?
Next time.
Again, meeting closed. Thank you very much.